Hey everyone, I was very lucky to be invited to an event by Destructive Creations in Poland to see and play the upcoming game Ancestors Legacy, specifically the multiplayer component of the game. I have done a video on the single player aspect of the game which you can check out linked in the description, and I was eager to see how the multiplayer played out. The event itself was great. I had some traditional Polish food which is delicious, and some Polish vodka which was, well, it was vodka. But before all that, I played about 6 hours of the multiplayer against the developers and against other journalists, and I also got to sit down with some developers to talk about their vision for the multiplayer and the game. Now in my inexperience, I didn't film any of this as I had little else other than my phone, so I hope at future events I'll invest in some recording equipment and be able to get some good interviews. Interviews are typically boring run-of-the-mill PR stuff, but I like to ask questions that may prove difficult to answer, which could be quite interesting. Anyways, so in this video I'm going to take you through the basics of the multiplayer and then show you some clips of interesting moments during the closed beta. In summary, it's kind of like a fast-paced Company of Heroes game, but with Vikings. Alright, so welcome to the Ancestors Legacy multiplayer beta. So if we go over to multiplayer here, we can go host new game and we can see the different types of modes and maps available. There are 3 current maps available in this mode. There's Burnt and Ruined, which is tied to 2 players, Frozen and Desolated, which is tied to 4 players, and then we have Autumn Rise, which is tied to 6 players. There's also 2 different game modes to choose from. There's Annihilation and Domination. Annihilation is your standard run-of-the-mill, go kill them, destroy their base, make sure they're just out, they're out of the game. And Domination is more about holding the specific points, and if whoever holds the most contributes to an overall score, and whoever hits the score first wins. It's actually my favorite mode. I much prefer Domination to Annihilation. It's more tactical and a bit quicker, I think. And you can vary the score as well for shorter and longer games. And then there's a maximum squad amounts and stuff like that. So I'm just going to host a private game and just play against the AI very quickly to show you kind of the basics in what's going on with the multiplayer. So here's the all of this is apparently just, kind of placeholder UI while they get things together. This game doesn't come out for 5 months. So it's actually in a really good state already, I think. So we'll enter there. We'll just pop in some... We'll pop in some medium AIs for us and some easy AIs for the enemy, because I'm actually not going to be playing really. I'm just going to be explaining things, and we'll see how this all goes. Alright. Alright, so we're ready to go. Now I actually forgot to choose a specific nation. There are 4 different types of nations in the game, and it looks like we're playing as the Slavs. The reason I can tell is because every single nation has their own unique units, and no nation shares any units between them. So I have the Shield Warband here, and I just happen to know that that's a Slavic unit. So I'm playing as the Slavs, and my other allies out here, that's a guy playing as the Slavs, and this guy is playing as the Anglo-Saxons. Okay, so I'll take you through some of the building systems, and then we'll probably move to some of the better footage where I'm actually doing kind of cool stuff. So essentially you start with a town hall, and you start in this really big open area that will eventually be filled up with other buildings. You don't actually pick and choose where you place your buildings, they just get predetermined slots. So if we're going to build barracks here, this will allow us to get more melee units. So we'll build a barracks, and you can see it's going to be built down here. Our workers will go out to make it, and they'll start fielding it. So interestingly, even though it's like predetermined slots and stuff like that, if I was an enemy unit here and I came along and I killed those workers, they'd never go out and build it. So it is actually fairly realistic where the people actually need to do the tasks that they're assigned with. So we've got our barracks building, now we can click that and get our Shield Warband. Now down here, this little panel down the bottom is where you can pretty much do everything. So this is your home base. We can build all these different types of buildings. This is our recruitment. You can build all of our different units. This is our kind of advancements and technologies. And this is another specific building, and that's pretty much it. So we've got another shield band, we can send them out this way. Now units in this game have a facing direction and a bunch of stuff going on with their UI. So if we check the little digits here, there's 10 little green digits, that's because there's 10 men in the unit. The grey bar is like their morale, and morale can go down if you attack a unit from the rear or from the side, and that's why the facing direction matters. They're level 1 and they're not ready to be upgraded, that's what the other bits mean, and they're basic armor. So we can actually increase their armor and stuff like that later. Now, as you may have noticed, it's gone dark. There's a day and night cycle to the game, so what we can do is pop on some torches, and that will extend our field of view, but it'll also make us a little bit more known to the enemy. We can check our allies up here. They're just capturing this area now. So we're probably going to move on and take C, the C point, which is down here, and then that's pretty much all I'll need to tell you before we go into the more complicated kind of things in the game. So what else is there? So I guess with our unit selections all appear down here. The different units we can field are right now are warbands, spears, cavalry, archers, Slavic archers, and catapults. That's the Slavic roster set. But you need to progress and build up before we can get that. First thing we need to do is be able to get technology tier 2. Then we can, well, I can't check it right now, but then we can build, you know, blacksmith, archers, all that different stuff to allow us to fill these better units. There's also kind of as I said, like a line of sight system in the game. You can hide in tall grass and stuff like that to lay ambushes, and you can also build traps. So you can do a stick pit trap, which is going to basically kill any unit that comes by it, or a cheaper pit trap, which will slow down units and kind of hinder their abilities. So we've come across some Anglo-Saxons here which are running away, but that's okay. And our allies coming up with us to take this area. So the way you take and capture areas is you basically just burn them to the ground, whether they're neutral or an enemy one. And what he can do is actually ring a bell, and his workers will all flood in and help defend it. When it's defended, they'll have a kind of a new UI icon around their health bar, like a silver looking one or a gold one if it's really well defended. This one had none, so that's why I didn't encounter any resistance, didn't take any damage taking it. Whereas this one here, as you can see, is the silver one. This is the one in the middle. It's just neutral, but it's firing back at him, and it's actually hurting my ally here. It's killing him little bit by bit. So we've captured this area now, and when you click it, you get the option to build a farmland, woodcutter's hut, etc. And actually, these areas are all built at the moment. So we can see the farmlands right here, and then we can see the woodcutter's hut is right here. So what you can do is just really handily, if you're anywhere on the map, you can just click this area, manage villages, and you can say, I want to just build everything or whatever. And we're not actually building the thing, I'm saying it wrong. Really, we're recruiting peasants to go work it. So if we click, let's recruit peasants to go work on the food, we should see this little thing fill up, and then peasants will come out of here and run straight to the food. And once they get on the food, we'll start making more food. We're already making a decent amount because our allies are just absolutely... The hard AI is just absolutely crushing the easy AI right now. Just giving me a great opportunities to talk about the game. So we can move up to technology tier 2, and as you can see, then we'll get more stuff. And whoops, didn't mean to do that. Each faction, I'd say, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 7, 8 units. I think the Germans have a bit more, and the Vikings as well. The Vikings have things like berserkers and spearmen, or specific types of spearmen that can do their own abilities. These guys have abilities as well, so let's see what they have. As it's a first tier unit, they can do raised shields, so if we're being fired on by those slingers we saw earlier from the Anglo-Saxons, this will help defend us a little bit. We can lower the shields, and then we can also do something like a chase, where we want a temporary burst of speed. And you can see if we hover over here, all those little icons down the bottom, range defenses increase, movement speed is increased, melee defenses decrease, and melee attack chances decrease. So it's not good for fighting, it's good for just chasing. And that's basically all that these units get. However, over time, if we go put these guys into combat, we will get benefits and upgrades and things like that. One really cool thing, we've already got it now, is level 1 armor. So we can upgrade these guys anywhere in the field, and when they get actually upgraded, we should see them have new armor. There's also the cinematic action cam that allows you to zoom in at any time. Right, we can see some of the guys got helmets, a little bit better armor and stuff, and when they get upgraded again, they'll be like really full plate mail and all that. Now this unit will actually run slower than its other unit because the armor is going to drag you down, and we can see that it's got like a silver icon around it. This guy has a bronze icon around it because that's indicating the armor level. So I think that's pretty much everything you need to know before we'll show you some of the better, more tactical bits of combat in the game. And as you can see, we're winning now because we have more of the points overall than the enemy. So we have all of these different points feeding into each other, feeding us resources. We've got tons of wood, food, and iron coming in, and that's basically your 3 resources that you have to manage. Resources are like, it's like a supply system. So if our food and wood gets raided, our income will go down. And then we spend wood to upgrade units and get new units and iron and things like that. Food is more of a constant supply. If we go into negative food, if we run out of food and go into actually deficit and minus food, our guys will become hungry and their morale bar will go all the way down. So what you can end up doing is you can field a bunch of units, just absolutely loads of units. Well, 10 is actually the max, but if I field 10 units right now, I would go into a food deficit. I could still field those 10 units, but they would all be really, really bad at combat effectiveness. They'd suck at fighting. And that's kind of the trade-off you have to go. So you want to attack your enemy's bases, you want to attack his like food camps, and kind of hinder his food production, so that his guys don't fight as well, so he has to reduce his numbers or field worse fighting units. And that's kind of the trade-off, and it's actually really interesting. Night and day combat, obviously, it just really just changes your light, or how much you can see, your fog of war. There's also rain and snow. Snow will, I think, slow down units and dampen fires, and rain as well. So if you're trying to, like, cast fire on a building... By the way, I'll show you that ringing the bell right now. So if we ring the alarm on this, our boys will come back in, they'll all freak out and come back in, and this will start being upgraded in terms of, like, what it can... Yeah, what it can hold. So this goes up to silver, but if we do this, a little bit of a better defense, this should go up to gold. And then it'd be a very hard building to take. You could sit there for, you'd probably need about 4 units just throwing torches on it and burning it, or with arrows or whatever, until you could actually take it. And it has a much more powerful tower to hit you. And there's other techs and things you can get to make your towers more powerful. So you'll see that at some points they defend villages in these next few clips extremely well, so it becomes very difficult. So once you take a place, bolstering its defenses with wood, bringing... Obviously when I bring the people in though, I'm not getting any of the resources here anymore, but it's super well defended and they'll never really take this back. So I think that's just about it for everything I'm going to show with regards to this kind of like live commentary on this, and I'm going to go now to show you some clips of the multiplayer beta I played against randoms over the last few days. We played some on stream, and it seemed like people got way better since I did these videos. I was kind of dominating in these clips, and then I played online a little bit later in the streams, and people were way better, understanding the game a lot more. So I think it's actually got quite a bit of depth to it, more so than it looks on the surface level. It does have this mobile kind of arcadey look to it, that I think it's really just this glowing green effect, and the way it's so smooth and everything, that maybe a little bit of a change in art style might get you guys away from that image. Speaking to Destructive Creations directly there. Other than that though, it is actually like a pretty deep game, and I think it's the speed as well that might make it feel a bit arcadey, but games can last about 20 to 30 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Alright, that's going to be it. Let's move on to the interesting clips. Alright, so we're pretty early on in the game here. We're just coming up to the 4-minute mark. I have 2 units of cleaver infantry for the Germans, and right now what I'm doing is I'm at the middle point in a 2v2 match, and I'm just setting down some defensive traps. I'm setting up the pit traps, which means if he walks over them, he'll get a temporary debuff and he won't be able to retreat. So I'm just setting up a little defensive position because I'm pretty happy with this area here, and I'm just going to wait until I have my 3rd unit to come up and reinforce, and then I can push. So the enemy is coming across the bridge. I didn't know that he's going to be attacking, and he's attacking in greater numbers, also as the Germans, also with cleaver infantry. So what I'm doing is entering into defensive formation, which is going to counter any charges that he has. If he does charge me, he won't. He'll actually take damage, and I'll be able to ignore his fear ability. We both have an ability called fear that will basically make any unit run away if they're not in defensive formation. So my 3rd unit is just arriving on the scene. He's actually bunched all up on one of my units, ran across my trap. He must not have seen them. He doesn't. You only see traps if you go into defensive formation, which he did, but he mustn't have seen them anyway. And he broke formation and went 2 offensive and 1 defensive now. My defensive unit is still holding. He's feared one of my units. He feared the unit that wasn't in defensive formation, my flanking unit. And my other one has run away. However, this one is still going to hold, and all 3 of his are now on me. One of his is now retreating, and I can now fear, so now he's down to 1. So it's a 1v1 situation where I'm actually hurting a little bit in terms of direct manpower against him. But my guys are really close to reinforcing, so all I have to do is run back up here and should re-engage him. And this one I can send to the middle point and reinforce, because I own this territory. So this is just an interesting little example that I wanted to show, where a 3v2 situation happened, and I was able to come back and win quite substantially. I didn't lose any units here. My ally coming in with a little bit of cavalry can help mop him up and just finish him out as he's retreating. And we should be able to take him out completely. And he's lost the unit and I didn't. So I'm able to just replenish and everything's good. So that's just a little example of an early game skirmish where we have the exact same units, but what you can do to change it for your benefit. The use of traps is something you'll see a lot of in the game. One of the traps is a spike trap that will pretty much kill an entire unit. And here with my little scout cavalry, I was messing about, checking out the cinematic cam, ran over the edge of a bridge, and the unit got completely wiped out. Now it wasn't too bad, scout cavalry is pretty cheap, but what you can do to combat that is if you enter defensive formation, you will reveal any traps, and typically a lot of players tend to place their traps at the edges of bridges, because obviously you have to funnel yourself down that point, and what you can do is just slowly advance on it. If you have an archer unit, just shoot at it, and you can just dismantle it from a distance. Some units can detect traps even without entering that defensive formation, such as archers, but you don't really want them to be at the front of your column, so it can be quite interesting. Here, I just basically fell back to catch this unit with 2v1 on the bridge. My berserkers can be used to chase them down. The Vikings get berserkers, pretty powerful unit. We have another example here where I'm playing as the Slavs, and I advance against 2 units versus 1, and I notice a trap ahead of time. So I actually, attack it, send it to be burnt, and then the enemy, who's in defensive formation, decides, okay, he's seen my trap, I'm going to back off because it's a 2v1 situation. But I start pursuing him anyway. I turn off defensive formation so that I can chase him. He's got his back facing me right now. I split my units, one off around the north and one a bit more south. Charge, use the chase ability to charge right into his back before he can turn around. Now what he was doing was he was getting close to his base, and he rang the bell for his base, which means it's going to be defended. So I came around with my little flank attack, thought everything's going great. We've destroyed his morale, so his combat effectiveness is going to go down by quite a lot. However, his settlement has now become a tier 3 gold defended settlement, and it's going to start firing on me one by one. And his other Slavic unit that's hitting into my main one is doing a lot of damage as well, because it's in defensive formation and I'm not. So I have 2 units now being hit by his towers. I've managed to clear out one of his units, but he's able to defend his area because he rang the bell and he kept in defensive formation on the edge of it. So very good placement from him. This clip is pretty interesting as well. We have 3 spear units versus 4 spear units, so I decided to put 2 of mine in defensive formation, and he's kind of charged all in, bad micro, all in on 2, and my 3rd, which is an armored unit, is allowed to come around the side and hit him into his rear, just a little bit. The other thing as well, he's in a current food deficit right now because he has a black bar above all of his units. His morale is completely shattered, their combat effectiveness is completely shattered, and they're going to do awful in combat, and I'm able to just cut them down very easily with less numbers. So your economy does play into the gameplay a bit. But that's not to say that brute force doesn't ever work. Here, my ally is advancing on a town that I was trying to take. He's advancing very slow because, again, he's in this food deficit. My ally has that black bar above him right now. But he's got so many units. He's got 5 units pressing in, and I've got my archers firing from afar, that we will be able to overpower that area. You can actually see down here at this other town, he's got another 4 units. So I don't think this player, my ally, understood really what was going on in terms of the food economy and deficit and all that, as people were just kind of learning the game at this stage. However, it actually worked. Brute force was able to overpower them at that area and take that area back, and then we can build up food and actually sustain the armies that he was fielding. Something as well that I just wanted to mention is that the food intake is actually based on a per entity basis, not a per unit basis. So if a unit has taken half losses, it's only going to be consuming half the amount of food, which is pretty good. So if you go into combat with a big blob of units that are all like starving, as they start to take losses because they're bad at fighting, eventually then their food will actually, consumption rate will go down, and they'll actually start increasing their stats again, which is pretty cool. So this particular engagement is quite interesting. I had 2 berserker units, 1 spear unit, and they had 2 archer units and 1 spear unit. I put 2 berserkers against the first spear unit I came to, and I was planning on using my other spear unit to catch their archers off to stop them firing. Once you engage in combat, they can't just disengage, they have to retreat back to base, or, just fight it out. But I got caught by another spear unit. Now, if you notice, the archers are firing really heavily into my berserker units, which is kind of a good idea, but they're after decimating their own unit with friendly fire. They are now, however, killing my berserkers, which are low armored units, and berserkers are the only unit I think in the game that can't retreat. You just have to fight to the end. But they're very powerful, obviously. So I bring up another archer unit into this fight to kind of counter their archers. My armored spear unit is able to take a lot more of those hits from the arrows and stuff. And now the spear unit has engaged the archers. The second archers down the south, I'm going to engage with my archers and see if we can kind of whittle them down. Now my spear unit's been wiped out, and they were armored, so that's really bad for me. And this archer unit is about to be wiped out by their archers as well. Their archers are slightly better. So I sent him on a retreat, and I've got 1 final spear unit to catch up. Now overall, this was kind of a loss. I mean, he lost a lot of units, so did I, but I've lost a lot. I've lost my armored unit, I've lost berserker units. These are expensive units to lose, but I've managed to keep the point, which is going to deny the enemy food, wood, and iron, which is right next to their base. So it's really good to actually have just done that, to keep pushing, keep the resource disadvantage on them. For this engagement, I'm playing as the Anglo-Saxons, which actually start off being able to recruit slingers from the beginning. So I've got 2 slingers units here, and then 1 spear unit in a shield wall kind of area. Now I see the enemy coming down with some berserkers up north, and I'm like, oh crap, gotta pull my slingers back, turn off my shield wall quickly, and then engage the berserkers as quick as possible. Then I bring back up my slingers to fire on him, And I'm kind of debating which one I should fire on, because I'm a bit worried about doing friendly fire, but I end up going for the Berserkers while my unit is flanked to free him up and allow that spear unit to turn around and face the other spear unit. Now the enemy, if you may have noticed again, they're in a food deficit. They've got too many units, they haven't managed their food economy again, and they're just flooding in with units that are like ill-equipped to fight this fight. So I'm going to retreat my spear unit now, pulling out my slingers as quick as possible, activate chase just to get that extra burst of speed to get away, and the 3 units get caught by my shield warriors unit, and they get stuck against that. Once you're engaged in combat, you can't get out of it. You have to pull the retreat button to fall back, or just see it to the end. So I'm able to sit back with my slingers in relative safety now and just start firing on them, but we managed to push them off and they start running away. So it's an interesting engagement there. They came at me with a lot of numbers, but the slingers were able to, with a little bit of kiting play, able to put them at bay and kill them. So this is just a little bit after that previous engagement. I've pushed up, I've taken their little camp building here, and now I've activated my torches so that I can see further into the fog of war, and I see 4 enemies coming towards me. So I start going into defensive formation, queue up a little, kind of close off the streets here a little bit, and start navigating my slingers around. So they've been funneled into these 2 attacks, into defensive formations, while they're in a food deficit, so I know that my guys are going to be able to hold. My 3rd spear unit has come into the battle as well, so they're going to be able to go around and flank. And then I spot another unit just off to the north that I'm able to fire on with my slingers. He's actually regaining his morale, so his food must have come back into being okay. So I activated guerrilla tactics, which is a kind of a thing that you unlock. And what I did there really quickly was I activated a prayer, which is kind of like an ongoing buff that you pay a lot for, that's going to make my slingers better in combat and better accuracy and stuff like that. So we were able to wipe out those units really quickly. The slingers decimated that spear unit that were coming towards me. They both got upgraded, so I was able to upgrade them for accuracy, and then we could just fire at the people that are running away. So we look at the damage we did. We took down 5 units, and I think we only lost 3 men, and maybe took a little bit of damage on about 5 others. So I wanted to show off just a little bit of cavalry combat as well. In this clip I've recruited 2 cavalry units. I've been holding this point for a long time, and they keep coming across their bridge from the E point down below and keep attacking me. So I've got cavalry queued up and ready to go. I've been defending up there a long time, so I know that they've archers ready to come and attack me to try and get me down. So I started advancing forward to close that gap between myself and the archers, checking out for these defensive positions you can see here and these pit traps that were in the ground. So we started being engaged. I had some pretty bad micro here, but I noticed that the archers were off on their own, so I came in for a big charge and absolutely just wiped them out. 2 charges, 2 units, completely dead, and then we charge in again on this other spear unit and do a hell of a lot of damage on him. So cavalry, and I'm playing as a Germans here, we have Panzer cavalry, are just really, really powerful late game kind of unit, and they can be countered obviously with spear walls and spears and things like that, but catching archers out in the open like that is just an amazing way to just destroy them. So that's pretty much cavalry combat in a nutshell. So the few clips that I did show in this video have tended to be all around early game. I was trying to show off the mechanics of the game mostly. This game was going on to into its 20th minute here, which is a bit more late game, and I was starting to field artillery pieces and starting to upgrade my units to give them all sorts of different armor and things like that. So I imagine games can go on quite a long time if you have a sort of stalemate. But for us in the beta, most of the time people don't know what they're doing, and it's very easy to just, you know, steamroll people, I suppose. So here, in this final clip here, I'm just pushing into the enemy base, burning their tents down. Their tents are their housing. If you take out their housing, then they can't make any new units. They've got some towers and things, and I have my artillery just sitting a little bit further back, firing into the town. It's actually got really, really good range. So that's pretty much going to be it for this video. I'm honestly very excited for this game. I think it looks really cool, and it's different. It's kind of like, to me at least, a Company of Heroes, a bit faster paced, and Company of Heroes with Vikings. You know, that's really is what it is. Each faction has about 10 different units, and each unit has all these different abilities, and there's 4 different factions. So there's a lot to kind of chew through and a lot to experiment with, and in the later live streams and stuff, I was getting my ass kicked. So I know that there's a lot for me even to learn, even though I felt like I knew most of what the game had to offer. Let's see if we can see any artillery shots come in. I think I've told them to hit the tent on the top right over there, so let's see. You should see it just like swoop in a second. There it is. Instant. It's just like an instant kill on a house. You can get buildings that help like put out fires and stuff like wells and things like that, but typically if you push into someone's town, they're gonna be just like, it's gonna be GG, because your economy will just out economy them, out resource them, and just beat them really easily. So anyway guys, let me know what you think of this game. I'm not a multiplayer expert. I play a lot of multiplayer games. I've got like 400 hours in Company of Heroes 2, just all multiplayer. You know, I play a lot of FPS multiplayer games and stuff, but I'm never one for stats and balance and things like that. So I'm not too sure on that front. But I think this game looks interesting, and I think the multiplayer is actually quite strong. For a game that's 5 months out from release, there's a lot they can do with it. Alright guys, that's going to be it for the video. Let me know what you think of the game and the video in the comments below, and consider leaving the video a like, or consider even maybe sharing it on one of your favorite sites or with friends if you want to help support the channel. It would really mean a lot to me. Alright, that's going to be it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.